welcome to the Fearlessly Inspired podcast. We are two military veterans ready to lead, empower, and inspire women in all areas of life. We are proof that your past doesn't have to define you and your circumstances don't have to hold you back. We are your hosts, Courtney and Barbara. Welcome to the show.
Welcome back, listeners. We are about to get fired up. We're so happy you're with us. And if this is the first time listening, we're just this crazy all the time. This week, we're talking about manifesting your future. So listeners, Courtney and I have had so many intense conversations this week, and we're coming today to talk about, just how we manifest things in our lives. And when we even have the opportunity to pause and really assess our own lives, how are we manifesting our life? Are we doing it with good intentions? What does that look like when you guys are manifesting your own lives? So let's first talk about what it means, Courtney. When people say that they're manifesting their life, what does that look like to you?
So what does it look like for me? I think it looks like, to me, it looks like, okay, what do I want in my future? It's like really just sitting with myself and really asking myself, what do I want my future to look like, right? And I'm sure that everybody does that. Everybody literally was like, okay, this is what I want my future to look like. This is maybe the house. This is maybe the car. This is maybe the location. This is maybe the dream job. This is all these things, right? But for me, I look at it in a more realistic point of view, I guess. And I know we had a discussion about this the other day. Like, what are realistic dreams and goals for me? And then I look at it and I'm like, okay, am I willing to work on achieving these goals? Okay. So we were talking about this the other day, and you said, when I mentioned realistic, you mentioned that realistic was playing it safe. And, that kind of took me off guard, honestly, because don't most people play it safe? I don't know. So, but for me, it's not that I don't have this really, really, really big goal, right? And, we gave an example of that of I want you gave the example of that of saying hey, I want a PhD, right? But that there's all these small accomplishments or small goals that you have to work up to until you get to that big goal, right? So that's how I see it. Okay, I have this realistic big goal, but what are the realistic small goals that work up to that point? Like the small bites. And I use that as an example, okay? Like the small bites that I need to make in order to continue to step up the ladder to the big goal. They say, don't look at the top of the staircase, just look at the first step. That's kind of like how I break it down. So yeah, that's what it kind of looks like for me, is just realistic goals that I know I'm willing to put the heart and the soul and the hustle into. And then, I think that when we talk about small bites, we were talking about, okay, when I accomplish that small bite, my first small bite, then I have the confidence to take the next step to the next small bite. All at the top of the staircase is the, the big goal, right? So that's how it looks like. That's what it looks like for me.
It's so funny because I'm, obviously you and I, we see each other because, we're Zooming right now through this podcast. And so it's just the passion in your face. It's just, and again, we've said this multiple times, and we've been, putting it out on social media that this podcast is just a spicy one. And, one of the things, before I go any further is, Courtney and I, we really, we talk through some of these things, right? Because we want to, bring some value to you, but we get spicy, and we play devil's advocate to one another. And so, for me, and I, you hinted to it a few minutes ago that, well, isn't that, thinking small, or isn't, whatever your comment was. And, I think that the small bit thing is great, right?
Mm-hmm.
As long as you know what your big goal is.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what your big goal is, and then you are working with those small bits, and that's great. But I think, when we initially had this conversation, it was well, I don't know what the big goal is, you know, or it wasn't identified, right? And so I think for any of us that we all live it. Oh, you said that we live it safe, or we, you
Play
know,
it safe. Yeah.
right? And I totally agree with that. I'm guilty of that. You're guilty of that. But I think, you know, it takes that person of courage to say, well, at the end of the day, this is my big goal, right? And then those little things are what you're manifesting as you go.
Right.
And for me personally, you know, when I think about manifesting something, you know, I manifest those things that I've already prayed about. You know, I'll pray about something for a very long time. And until I feel like, okay, this is something that, you know, God's calling me to do, I don't necessarily manifest that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are things that I'm, you know, even if I do manifest them, I'm quick to be like, well, God, you know, I'm asking for this, but if it's not right for me, then by all means, you know, shut the door, lock it, throw it away. Maybe it's for another time in my life, just not now, right? And I think that I personally find manifesting and praying very similar. And I know, you know, some people are very different because, you know, when the terms of manifesting, right? It's like you're talking to the universe or, you know, something like that, where, you know, somebody of faith might be like, well, you know, that's not really, you know, you shouldn't be doing that.
Like a
You know?
faith-based practice.
Right. And I personally, you know, I'm a faith-based person, but I manifest what I feel that, you know, I'm going with in my future. And so, anyways, let me ask you this question, Courtney. What do you think?
Well, let me ask you a question because you just asked me that question. So, what do you think your biggest obstacle is in manifesting your future?
For me, 100% is fear and confidence. You know, for most things, I come across very confident, but I've built that confidence up before, you know, I've done whatever that is. Like, you know, I've been over in the corner probably, you know, talking myself down multiple times before I actually start to go through with it. And, you know, as I said a few minutes ago, you know, I pray about it. I think you know, and that's probably not the right way to say it, but I feel like I over pray about it, or I overthink it, or, you know, I'll go through 10,000 scenarios of why it won't work out before I actually determine, okay, I'm just going to go through with it and see what happens.
Right.
And I think that that's a very common issue, you know, that we,
And I think that's because, like, you don't want to manifest something into your life that isn't meant for your life. You know, I think when we talk about manifesting or praying for something, like in the moment, we might pray for something that we think that we need, or we think that we want, or we think that we desire. And then when, you know, because maybe in that mindset, like that's what you think you need, when in fact you don't need that. You know what I mean? Like, this is just like kind of a bump in the road, and it could be that it's not meant for you. And, you know, maybe that's why you spend a lot of time praying about it, because you pray about the things to make sure that, you know, that's in alignment with what God wants you to the path God wants you to take. Right? Look at me talking all religious and shit. And then I screw it up. But, you know, like, you don't want to manifest the wrong things into your life. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to manifest something that's not on your road, on your path
right.
to purpose.
You know, and I agree with you, right? I mean, you could be manifesting, you know, and we're talking business, right now, or, you know, at least our mindset is business.
Right.
But you think about, you know, a relationship, or you think about just your own health and well-being, right? You know, when I think of manifesting, I'm thinking, you know, I'm courageous, you know, I have courage, or, you know, Lord, give me the courage to do something. You know, those are things also, or, you know, the relationships, you know, how many relationships have we been in a lifetime where we probably got every sign known to man not to go into it, but we went through it anyways, right? But did we, you know, we manifested that into our lives because we were so determined to do whatever that was, whether it was good or bad. But at the end of the day, you know, and I think you would say the same, those things have helped us, become a little wiser today.
Right.
So I don't regret any of those things, but I think that they definitely have helped us along the way. So Courtney, what are some top tips for manifesting your future? What would you recommend?
Well, I think you mentioned one of them, and that's definitely prayer, right? Like we all pray about, what we want. And sometimes that prayer is silent because we don't want other people to know what we're praying for, right? Because it might not fit into the mold the mold of our life and what people expect us to be, right? And so I definitely, would start with prayer. And then I definitely would start with practicing gratefulness, gratuity. And meaning like, okay, although I'm praying for something that I want in the future, let me make sure that make sure the universe knows that I'm grateful what I have now, because you have to be grateful for what you have now in order to appreciate what you want, right? You can't just be like, I'm not grateful for anything, but yet I want somebody to give me the world, right? And then, I think journaling and vision boarding are kind of the same thing, because in journaling and vision boarding, I always recommend that you write what you want to manifest as if it's already happened, right? So instead of saying, I want to speak in front of 500 people, you would say, I speak in front of 500 people on whatever topic you want to talk about, right? So like the way of saying I want to doesn't necessarily tell the universe or God or whoever that that's what you want, or that's what you are willing to do, or that's the energy that you're putting out to say, I want this. Like, okay, I'm going to do it. Like your energy has to match it. So when you say, I speak in front of 500 people about human trafficking or women empowerment or sexual assault and harassment awareness, and you're saying like my energy needs to match that, I want that in my life, and I'm gonna do it. And so when I know when we've done vision boards before, we put it like that on the vision board. I speak in front, I'm a speaker, I speak in front of 500 people, not that I want to, that I do it right now. And if you guys follow, Rachel Hollis or a lot of people that talk about the law of attraction and manifesting your future, and I think there's a term for it on how you write it as if it's already happened. But that's what I would definitely, those are some things that I definitely would recommend for manifesting your future. And then obviously stopping the negative self-talk, because if you don't believe you deserve something, truly, the universe is not going to give it to you, like, you have to know that you are deserving of the things that you want and desire in life, and not that somebody's just going to nobody's going to hand you something that you're not willing to work for or have the energy to match. So, once you can stop talking negatively about what you deserve and what you can and you can't do, I think you are well on your way to at least, beginning the process of manifesting your future.
And it's so funny because we've listened to plenty of podcasts this week about manifesting, just to, kind of get our, minds going and just, getting fired up about it. And, when I listened to the Audible for John Bishop, Unfuck Yourself, one of the things he says, when you're trying to manifest things into your life, is the first thing you really have to do is determine what you're willing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Not willing, when you make your list, if you're not willing to, give up family time to do X, Y, and Z,
Mm-hmm.
then why on your list? If you're not willing to do this, then why is this on, in order to get to this is on your list. Like, why is it there? And so, I think that also kind of applies in there, is when you're thinking about things, is really determining what is it that you're willing to do and not do. Because at the end of the day, if you're not willing to, do some things, then you're just not going to be, depending on what it is you're trying to manifest, you're not going to get there.
You're just putting an empty goal onto a board that's never going to happen, because you're not willing to make the sacrifices to make it happen.
Absolutely.
Hey, fearlessly inspired listeners. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free, There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your own phone or computer. Anchor will also distribute your broadcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money directly from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Barbara, what do you think are some misconceptions about manifesting your future?
You know, one of the things I would say is people typically, you know, only hear about people manifesting about money.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I kind of alluded to it a little earlier, like, you know, I personally don't manifest money into my life because, you know, money is the root of evil sometimes. And so, but, you know, if you're going to manifest money, you know, maybe it's you have to think logically or after the fact, okay, you know, what am I going to do with that money? And start manifesting that into your life, you know? So what I mean by that, and, you know, I know there are people out there who manifest that they want to be a millionaire, and that's great. But a lot of them already know what they want to do with their millions. So, you know, is your goal, and, you know, this is just kind of an example, when you're manifesting something, is your goal to help 100,000 people? And maybe, you know, that's what you're manifesting money about. Like, I need the money to help these people. And so, you know, I think in my mind, that's probably the biggest misconception, is that it's only about manifesting money. When that's not true. You should be manifesting all kinds of things, good health, you know, whatever it might be, relationships, you know, friendships, your tribe, you know, whatever that might be. And so I personally, that's the first thing that comes to my head about misconception. And the other thing is that, and again, we kind of talked about it at the beginning, is that people that of faith cannot manifest things into their life. Manifesting, prophecy, you know, whatever you want to say, I think it's the same. And I manifest things into my life, again, that, you know, I pray about. And, you know, you get people who are turned off about manifesting things into their life, but it's a word, you know, what are you know, so I think if people would get unwrapped around the word, then, you know, it all means the same thing, as long as your intentions match, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know we talked a little bit about this because of the money mindset thing, you know, like, it's okay if you want to manifest material things into your future, you know, because what is good for you is what is good, may not be good for me, right? And so I think it's important that you realize that, and this is for the listeners, you know, that when you just don't get wrapped around thinking that the material things that you are manifesting in your life are are going to bring you happiness. Because at the end of the day, like, material things can bring you temporary happiness, but at the end of the day, like, what else, like, you know, we find happiness, a lot of people don't realize this, we find happiness on the inside. You know, if we're not happy with who we are as a person, then how can we be happy with somebody else in, you know, the relationships that we're building, right? How can we be happy with our partner? How can we be happy with our job? How can we be happy as a parent? All these things. And so I think a lot of people like manifest material things because they think that they're going to make them happy, when in fact they don't. It's like temporary happiness. So when we're talking about manifesting, we're talking about what's going to make Barbara happy on the inside. What are Barbara's goals? What are Courtney's goals? What are we passionate about? What is going to bring us joy in life? And we're not putting a price tag to that. We're not putting like a money value to that, because at the end of the day, like, if I knew that helping 100,000 clients or 100,000 people was going to make me $1 million, would I put on my vision board that I want to make $1 million, or would I put on my vision board I want to inspire and empower 100,000 people? And
Right.
Anybody that knows me knows that I'm going to put I want to inspire and empower 100,000 people, regardless if it brings me $1 million.
Right. Absolutely. And, you know, I can't for the life of me, I know that I texted you this earlier this week, but, you know, on one of the podcasts that I listened to, it said that, you know, happiness and success are two different things.
Absolutely.
And we should pursue them both as if they're two different things.
Absolutely.
And so back to the materialistical things that you're referring to, I remember us having a conversation about how you had a Cadillac on your vision board.
I did.
I'm like, why the hell do you want a Cadillac?
I did.
And the truth is that Cadillac represented a stepping stone in success for you in that particular path, right? And so, but it took that discussion, because you don't seem like the person that would be like, why the hell do you want a Cadillac? Like you're not a Cadillac kind of person, you know what I'm saying? And so, but that's not something that's going to make you happy. That's something that shows a part of your success within your company or within your organization or whatever it is you're doing. And so that's really what that represented. And sometimes I think our misconception of people, just like I had misread your vision board, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that because somebody wants that Cadillac, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're materialistic, but
Right.
that Cadillac represents something within their organization that means that they hit a point of success somehow.
Absolutely.
So I think that, I think when I was listening to the podcast, I'm like, having the Cadillac doesn't make me happy, but the Cadillac does represent a portion of my success in whatever it is I'm doing. And so, just to hear him say, you should be pursuing them separately. And I think, don't quote me, but I think it was Jay, what is his name?
Jay Shetty?
Jay Shetty. I want to say I was listening to him on the Rob Dial podcast, and he was talking about the two paths, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, so let me ask you, Courtney, this week I was listening to, as I mentioned, the Unfuck Yourself Audible.
Mm-hmm.
And John stated that we should talk as if we've already attained and accomplished something, right? And we kind of talked about this earlier. What are some other examples that we probably use every day that we're not even aware of, that we're potentially, that we really want to manifest, but we're not? Does that make sense what I just said?
So you're saying, like, is there something that maybe we're putting out in our everyday thoughts that is like maybe self-sabotaging our manifestation?
Well, I think you said earlier, we're talking about, I am a millionaire or I will be a millionaire. So what are some examples, other than, that one,
Mm-hmm.
that, probably have heard out there where people are saying something where we just need to change that language a little bit?
I mean, I think people do it all the time because they use the word "I want" rather than "I'm willing." You know what I mean? Like, and we touched upon it. Like, what you want is okay. Like, you can want a lot of things in life, but are you willing to sacrifice something to get it? And that could be a lot of, and I think this kind of goes back to, some things that I talk about in rediscovering your purpose and rediscovering who you are, is like a lot of women, a lot of people, they want their life to be different, but they aren't willing to do what it takes to change their life, right? And I think, and maybe I'm getting off topic here, but I think, I think society has told us who we're supposed to be, right? We're supposed to be a spouse. We're supposed to be a mom. We're supposed to be, a nurturer. We're supposed to like be a giver. We're supposed to be all these things. But at the end of the day, those things, those roles aren't making us happy, because we're self-sacrificing. We're self-sacrificers. We sacrifice who we are to fit into the mold of who we need to be for other people. And so, and when we're in those roles, our life is about I want, not what I'm willing to do. Right. So I think when you realize that it's not selfish to want things that are outside the traditional mold of who people expect us to be, then you start, pouring from a cup that's personally yours. You know what I mean? Like you start diving into what you desire and what you want. And when you can sacrifice who people want you to be and chase the dreams and the passions and the desires that you want and you want to manifest for you, then then you can do it. But we're so caught up in who other people want us to be, who we're conditioned to be, there'll always be wants. And so when we continue to fit in that mold of I want, rather than I'm willing to sacrifice something to get to manifesting the things I need in my future. Does that make sense? And maybe it doesn't make sense because it's a little off topic, but.
Well, you know, and I'm going to refer to a different podcast, you know, Christine Kane, you know, in her podcast, it's called the Courage to Believe for Victory, before you even see it. And, you know, I think so often that, you know, a lot of us struggle with not being able to see something. So therefore we don't really believe that it's going to happen. Right. And so, you know, kind of to the question, it's like, you know, it can be as simple as, you know, that I find a job this week, you know, or it could be as simple as, you know, I don't fight with my kids, you know, for those people who have, you know, kids, or I don't fight with my parents, for, you know, vice versa that. You know, those are all things that, you know, maybe if you're, you know, a spouse of some sort, or you're in a relationship, you know, you can be manifesting those things. And sometimes we waste so much energy on figuring out what's wrong that the thought of manifesting something good, or it doesn't necessarily even come to our mind sometimes. We're so focused on the negative. And I think, you know, for me personally, obviously, you know, again, listening to this topic on multiple podcasts, you know, it kind of made me sit back and I thought about like, man, I don't really manifest things about my relationship. And it's really weird to say, but like, especially as, you know, somebody who's faith-based, right? Like that's supposed to be my first thing.
Right.
And you know, it kind of took me off guard because, you know, it was like, man, if you're slacking in this area, then you're probably slacking in other areas. And when you start to kind of think about those things and how you're manifesting stuff in your life, you start to see like, if you're not doing it in this area of your life, then you're not doing it in this area of your life. And so, you know, I think all around, like, we all struggle with this. You know, this is not, you know, it's not that Barbara and Courtney have figured it out, because we're still going to struggle with this situation, you know, with this scenario. But, you know, we've obviously became a lot more aware of the little things, especially through, you know, talking through this, because, you know, we know so many people who are struggling with this. And
Yes. And you know, just to kind of like wrap things up a little bit, you know, manifesting your future and changing the words that are coming out of your mouth every single day, it's a practice, and it's not something that's going to happen overnight. We are going to allow our limiting beliefs to determine whether we can or we cannot manifest big dreams and goals. We're going to shortchange ourselves along the way. We're going to realize that we are manifesting something in our business, but we're not manifesting something in our relationship. We're going to realize that there's so many other places that we should be focusing on manifesting our future. And it's going to be it's going to be hard. It's going to be like a reality check. I mean, we had a reality check this week just talking about these things. And so don't think that me and Barbara have this figured out. We don't. This is a daily habit that you have to change, and you have to like be intentional about it. Just like anything else in your life, just like podcasting every week, you have to be intentional about it, you know? And so in closing, you know, we just want to make sure that, you know, if you want to manifest something in your future, you know, make sure make sure it's something that you really want. Make sure it's something that, you know, is going to bring you some kind of joy and happiness and fulfill a passion or a goal or a dream in your life. And write it down, but write it down with the same energy that you will have when you have that thing, when you've accomplished it. And so we hope you've enjoyed the podcast this week. We hope that you will continue to come back and join us on these crazy, wild discussions. And if you know somebody that might benefit from this this podcast or this topic, please feel free to share it with them. And as always, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Fearlessly Inspired Podcast.